Okay, this is my recent acquisition of a radio. It's a Zenith G500, which is my favorite as far as looks go for a Zenith transoceanic tube receiver. And it came with a booklet and a photo fact servicing for a 600 and for this G500. Also came with a couple of shortwave books that probably don't hold much relevance today, but what the heck? I'll check them out and see how they are. All right, this needs quite a bit of cleaning. And my go-to is Goop hand cleaner, but they didn't have any at the Ace Hardware where I live, and they had just this Gojo. But I use it and quadruple aught steel wool, and I've used it for decades to clean Tolex coverings on both transoceanics and guitar amplifiers. So it works really well. It's also great when you clean a wood radio. I've had radios that have sat in probably what was somebody's kitchen for decades, and they were smokers, and it was covered in tarry residue and actually sticky to the touch. And I used the goop on it with the quadruple aught steel wool, and after a good cleaning, it got down to the original finish, and the radio looked gorgeous. Actually, the tar and nicotine piled on top of the finish, I probably saved it. So after I got done, I had a radio that had essentially a brand new finish on it. But it looks like the spring works. I think with a little bit of oil, it's going to work better. So, that's a big deal on one of these. It's got all the latches to it. The inside looks good. Actually, the metal looks pretty good. Got a little bit. It ought to clean up decent enough. But these are actually fairly easy to clean up. And most of the time, personally, I have never, ever put new caps in one of these things. They've always just worked without a hum. They had extra durable caps in them. They were built to resist humidity. So that's probably one of the reasons why I wound up getting these and having them work right off the bat. One nice thing is that's a Dumont 1L6. And that's what was in it when I found it. It looks like it's had some use, but inside of that box is a brand new Zenith 1L6. It's pristine. It almost looks like it was probably pulled out of the radio and then just put away, and the Dumont was used instead, because the wear of the getter, the silvering on the tubes, all look very similar. So I think they've pretty much been in there all at the same time. It's dirty, but it's going to clean up nice. Hopefully the Gojo works just as well as the Goop hand cleaner. But here, let me turn it around. We'll open up the back. It's still got the antenna cable, the two rubber suction cups. I might try treating those and seeing if they'll become a little bit more supple. But unbroken antenna is a big deal on these. A lot of times spring broke, whatever, and they're just kind of in there limp. But a little bit of cleanup and a little bit of oil, and that thing will look and act like new. I've got all the tubes out of it, and I'm going to test them and see if any of them are any good and assess what I'm going to need. But I'm hoping they're good enough that I can try it out after changing the cord, because somebody just tied in to a dry rotted cord, and asking for disaster there. So hopefully it's not torn up. A lot of times the push buttons on it, they take a little bit of deoxit, and one of the good things is to take an index card and cut it down so it will slide in between the contact points, and put a little deoxit on it and just rub it back and forth. I learned that from my old tube repair guy before he got me started doing my own, and it's worked very well. So that's about it. I'm just beginning. I'll take pictures of it when I get it cleaned up. I think you'll be surprised how much better it looks on the outside once I clean this Tolex covering. And it's actually, the Tolex is in really good condition. You know, it's got a few spots, but nothing heinous, no worn through corners or anything. But we'll see what it looks like after it's done. All right, this is what I've been working on the last couple of days. And there was one split 0.47 capacitor, one of the big bumblebee over by the big resistors on the I think it's on the speaker side. I'd have to look at it. I'm going to tilt it up here pretty quick and start running a temperature gun on it. Make sure things aren't overheating. And that came out really nice. Cleaned the inside of the glass. It's going to look pretty. But I got it running at 100 volts on the Variac, and it's playing well on the broadcast band. Seems to be picking up a lot. None of the other bands are working right now. They're probably just dirty. And I'll soak a piece of index card with a little bit of deoxit and go in there and put it in between the contacts and just rub it back and forth. And every Zenith transoceanic, tube transoceanic I've tried that on, if it was working otherwise, that cleared up the problem. So I'm hoping the same thing happens here. But this is a really nice looking radio. Turn it down low. There's no hum. So I don't think it had any capacitor problems other than the one big bumblebee in there. And you know, I read somewhere where those things, where they leak a lot. I've had more of these tube transoceanics with just a little bit of cleaning. Most of them work right off the bat, and they work well. They chose those resin encased capacitors because to keep the humidity out of them, because they knew that these things would be traveling and they'd be outside. So they encased them, and myself, I think that is probably the reason for the longevity. But I don't know if that one maybe overheated, the one that cracked, but I was able to pull off about a third of the case. And so anyway, 0.47's in there now, replacing orange. No, it's a brown drop capacitor, and it's working fine.